But all I can say is try 1 month with the regime I just explained, and you will realize this is much, much harder than just running 6 days a week and just getting your runs in, because there are so many other components to it that are extremely mentally and physically challenging that, again, make race day seem a lot more relaxed because of just how intense this training is.
Are you running a marathon? Oh my god, I could never run a marathon. You sure about that? My god, a marathon that's like 42 kilometers, 26 miles. I don't understand those people. That used to be me.
Not anymore. Welcome to the Marathon Podcast. My name is Christian Warwick, aka Warwick Runs on Instagram, YouTube, and sometimes even on TikTok. Really happy to have you here. Thank you so much for all the feedback, all the comments, all the listens that I've had on the podcast lately. It really means a lot. Today, I learned the hard way that you should not promote any podcast on Reddit. So if you are a listener and you've seen that one, I'm sorry about it. I just really wanted to share Steven's story, the one that we had in the last episode. And fair to say, I'm never going to promote anything there ever again. I just apologize for that. But at least 40,000 people or more saw Steven's story. So that's, I guess, a little plus. Anyways, today we are joined by Felicia, who is a great runner. She proved on Sunday in the New York City Marathon that she's going to be one of the American girls to follow when it comes to marathon running going forward. She did a 2:35:17 marathon, and she came from a 2:44 in Boston. So I don't think anyone really expected her to run that fast. She didn't even expect herself to run that fast. And the way she got there, it's very untraditional. I thought that Stephen McAuley's method of training was unique, but this one is very, very unique, and I can't wait for you guys to hear it. I'm so happy to have Felicia on the podcast. I'm also so happy to feel that energy that she had throughout the whole episode. And I was asking her if this was something that was just her normal energy or if it was just flying or being on a high after the New York City Marathon. Seems like that is just her personality, and I loved it. She's combining this running with studying to become a doctor. Crazy to hear her everyday life. I do not understand where she gets all the time from. She goes to bed at 6:30. She is super dedicated. I am just very, very impressed, and I can't wait for you guys to hear this episode. We are joined by more New York City marathoners this week, and that means that there are going to be some bonus episodes. So I'm recording this right now. It's an hour and a half before the episode comes out. Tomorrow we'll be joined by Yoel, who was the top American in the men's field. And so that is going to be a bonus episode on Saturday. It's going to be a little bit different just because I want these New York City marathoners to come out and be, pretty newsworthy. And now it's still less than a week since the New York City Marathon. And I think that it's very, very fun to hear from these fast runners. So happy to have you here. Please give this podcast a review, share it with a friend, tag the Marathon Podcast on Instagram, whatever you are doing, listening to it. And follow the podcast on Spotify, Apple Music, Apple Podcast. Anyways, let's just get to the conversation with Felicia. Felicia, welcome to the Marathon Podcast.
Thank you. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on. I'm almost surprised that you have the energy after this weekend, but maybe you have a lot of energy.
Yeah, I think it's been an exhausting month because of my clinical schedule with medical school and training. But honestly, the last few days have just been so exciting that I don't think anyone would feel tired, only energized over here.
Yeah, I guess like last weekend is kind of a part of presenting yourself. This is probably going to be a weekend that you'll remember for forever, and it might change your life as a runner. So why don't you say something about, or you can start by presenting yourself, but also say a little bit about this weekend.
Sure. Yeah. So, my name is Felicia Pasadyn. I was born and raised in Cleveland, Ohio. My whole middle and high school career, I was a swimmer runner hybrid, but probably more of my identity was rooted in swimming, actually. So then I went off to Harvard, was recruited to swim there, swam for Harvard, graduated in 2022, did a master's degree at Ohio State, swam there as well. And I believe the day I ended my collegiate swim career, March 2023, I started training for a half marathon and then converted to distance running on that random day in March of 2023 and never looked back. So now I live in New York City and I go to NYU Grossman School of Medicine, which is one of only 4 tuition-free medical schools in all of America. So that's what pulled me here. And my running career has really taken off. I think I have the New York running scene to thank for that for sure. And the level at which I've been able to achieve is really a product of living in the city that never sleeps, I think. And it has been building up to this dream of making Olympic trials that I thought would happen maybe in 2026, probably in 2027. Didn't think it would happen on Sunday, but it did. And so that race I'll remember forever.
Awesome. That was a great introduction. Before we dive into all things running, you said that you're studying medicine, right?
Hmm.
So
Yes.
how is that? How is it to combine medicine and running? Because I know that it's pretty crazy when you're studying for to become a doctor. You don't really have that much time when you're not
No,
after
no,
studying.
there's very little free time, especially because NYU Grossman School of Medicine this year, my class launched their 3-year MD option. So I'll actually graduate in May of 2026 with my medical degree after having only been in medical school for 3 years. And so I'm applying for residency physician positions now, and I'll start radiology residency in June. But looking back now on all the work that is taken to balance an elite running career with a 3-year medical degree, it almost no moment in the day goes by unslotted and unaccounted for. My Google Calendar the past 3 years of my life has been back to back to back to back with everything I need to do in the day.
Wow. Yeah, I'm so impressed. My sister-in-law, she was in residency in New York last year, and I know how much that takes. And so just doing that by itself is very impressive, and then combining it with, like you said, pursuing this dream as a runner, and then you did a 2:35:17, right, this weekend. It's insane.
Yes.
Like you do need to have quite a lot of time to run to be able to do that. So what
Mhm.
is your advice to anyone having that kind of back-to-back Google Calendar
Yeah.
and wanting
Yeah.
to combine it with running? What is the secret?
I think I'll say 2 things about the secrets that I stand by. Number 1 is that if you want anything bad enough in your life, you will make time for it. Time, we all have 24 hours in a day, and some people use that extremely efficiently and very intentionally. For example, doom scrolling is something I refuse to participate in. And even by making sacrifices like that alone, I think if I want running badly enough, I get it done. So this whole last month of October, for example, I was working a 7 A to 7 P in hospital schedule. So every morning I was up at 4, workout 4:15 to 6:45, 2-minute shower, 5 minutes for breakfast, and I'm there. I'm at the hospital. I'm seeing my patients by 7. So that type of schedule is difficult and it's not always sustainable. Some things do fall to the wayside on a month like that. But again, I wanted to do well in the pro field of the New York Marathon badly enough that I would make time 2.5 hours per day to work out. The second thing is in the triangle of career and fitness, sleep and social. Some people say you can only have 2, and honestly, it's kind of true. And so I think what I've been able to do to balance it is really focus on sleep and touch social whenever I can. So, for example, I'll always call my parents every day, that's a non-negotiable, and I'll always try to hang out with my friends. but I will never sacrifice my 8 to 9 hours of sleep every night, and I'll never sacrifice my career and fitness goals. So you kind of just have to think about that triangle and think, how in my day can I fit in what I prioritize the most? And then you just go from there.
You sound like a professional athlete already.
I don't know about that. I definitely had to rise to the occasion and really coach my brain into accepting that I did deserve to be in the pro field on Sunday. But it fueled the fire beneath me, knowing that I was running with women who go a 2:19 on the hardest course that exists in the world marathon majors. So yeah, it was very inspiring.
Yeah, and we're obviously going to talk about what this means to you and, or how you got there. But before we do, I'm curious now that like you said, you're going into residency next year. That's probably going to be even crazier. I know that is insane. But with the race that you ran on Sunday, you are kind of starting to, at least for me, the way I look at it, it looks like that could also change the trajectory of everything in your life in a lot of ways. So if you got the ultimatum, or you were, got the opportunity to become a professional runner within the next couple of months or next year, what would you do? Would you still try to combine it the way you are now, or would you be like, would you put everything on pause in terms of your medicine studying and just say, I'm going pro?
There is no pause in medicine. I especially as someone who has worked my entire life to become a medical doctor, this is a goal of mine that I've had since middle school. I've dreamed of helping patients and, finding cures and participating in academic research. I do think it's possible, though, to have it all. I don't think it's an either or. And I can sit here and say that I'll never give up my passion for medicine and say my goal is to go pro in 2026. And it is. I'd really like to sign with a company and get a base salary and get a travel stipend. I believe that I have earned that at this point. And I'd like to see where that goes. But I do know that come June, when residency starts, it will become extremely challenging time-wise. But, I mean, every resident physician has to take a vacation at some point. So if that vacation takes me to the Chicago Marathon, then so be it. And that's kind of where my brain goes right now. Will I be able to show up at monthly New York Roadrunners races anymore and, win top female, something like that, do all these tune-ups that I'm doing right now? No. But, there's ebbs and flows in your life of how often you race. And I think if in the beginning of residency, number of races takes a pause, but I just have very high quality ones, then that's sort of what I envision for myself. But I'm going to try to have it all here because these are two things that are extremely important to me, my personhood, my identity.
I love that. Hopefully this helps. My brother's godfather, he is a 4-time Olympic gold medalist, and he was studying to
Oh,
become a
wow.
doctor while he was pursuing his dream. So it's definitely possible. I remember hearing stories about him. He was a speed skater, and then we have there's a board that you're doing when you're doing dryland training where you have wool socks on top of your shoes and you're just going back and forth. So he had the books in front of him. It seems almost impossible to read that way, but apparently he did read while he was doing that. So maybe you can have your books on the treadmill or something like that. And I don't know if
Yeah,
you've
yeah.
already done that.
Yeah, the past 2 years of my life have been defined by an iPad with questions on a platform called UWorld, and I'll do multiple choice questions while I'm on the treadmill or the Stairmaster or the bike. So it's in the works, and I love hearing stories like that because it shows, that is possible. I'm not the only one.
Definitely not. And I also think that it's incredible to hear that dedication, and that is something that at least I feel like you hear from the best athletes in the world.
Mhm.
They have that kind of dedication, and you also hear a lot of stories about the people who are actually doing what you're doing, those are also usually the most successful people. And like you said, there are, like, if I look at my day, I'm obviously spending a lot of time on this podcast. I've built a business where I have a lot of freedom, but I also have a lot of time during my day, and I'm a bit embarrassed to say this, where I spend more time, scrolling on Instagram or watching something on my iPad, and I could have used that time more usefully. Like it could have been more beneficial to me, this podcast, to my business, whatever, if I was more structured with my day. And I think that what you're saying is that you are so structured that you might actually have more time for running than most people think that they have,
Yes.
right?
Oh, absolutely. I think that in a way, my routine, I might actually be a worse runner if I didn't have such limited free time. Because then what I also do is every workout, I make incredibly high yield. Like some of my running friends joke, they're like, "Do you ever do anything in zone two?" And I said, "No, I don't touch zone two. Everything has to be in three, four, or five because I only have time for it to be in three, four, or five." Or like, for example, I don't have time to pick up light weights when I do strength training because I'm thinking I'm here now at the gym and I've dedicated 30 minutes after my run. So I might as well just pick up heavier weights. So
I
in a
love
way,
that.
it's motivating.
Well, this is very interesting, and I can't wait to hear more about that. But I do think that we need to backtrack it. First of all, when you're talking about swimming, I don't know if you heard Julia Paternine's story, the one who placed third in the World Championships in the marathon. She also started out as a swimmer, so she has a swimming background, and then she found running later on, and now she's number 3 in the world in the marathon. So it sounds like you have a lot of things going for you. But if you were to backtrack to like when you were younger, when you first started doing sports and eventually started running, what was that like, and what was that journey like?
So I first started swimming when I was 4 years old, is when I did my first 50-yard freestyle competition. And to
That's
tell you the
young.
honest truth, at that time, the reason why is because I saw my three older sisters also swimming. And I wanted to be like them. And my mother and father said, "Well, we're not gonna take the 4 girls to different sports. You're all gonna go to the same place." And I was happy to. I liked the feel of the water. It was a very self-motivated, driven sport. I loved the teammates that I had, became my best of friends in middle and high school. And then I think I wanna say I did my first 5K around 9 years old, and also that was because the whole family was going to this July 4th 5K, and my oldest sister was running a 10K, and it was just, why not give Felicia a bib too? She can just kinda run, walk it, whatever, and I think maybe I went like 22, 30, and I remember thinking, "I like running a lot too." So then I signed up for middle school cross country. And, yeah, being a three-sport athlete, it was difficult. There were some days in, I believe it would have been October, November, where that overlap between you're still running, but swimming is season is picking up, where I would swim in the morning before school because doubles were common in swimming, and then go to school. And then I would have cross country practice right after school, and then swim practice again. So it was a very intense schedule. Um, but I also think that it was extremely character building, and it taught me or from an early age how to prioritize my time and how to work really hard to achieve the goals that I wanted to achieve. But unfortunately, my running career did not see its potential in high school because I, had a stress fracture, and then that kinda derailed my career, and so then when I committed to swim in college, I just thought, "Well, I'll pick up running when it makes sense for me." And now it makes sense for me, so here I am.
So when did you? I'm not sure if we covered how old you are today.
I'm 23 years old.
23. And so how old were you when you picked up running again?
I would have been 21.
21. Okay, yeah, so it
Mhm.
hasn't been that long since you picked up the running shoes again.
No, it hasn't been very long, but I think this isn't a story of natural talent simply because of how much of a base I had from
Yeah,
swimming.
exactly.
Yes, not to mention that I always loved running so much, like, just the feel of it, the exploratory aspect of it. that every Sunday, that was our one day off for swimming, I still ran just
Yeah.
because I literally loved it. I didn't do competitions or anything. So it wasn't completely new when I say like, re-picked up the running
Yeah.
shoes. It was like, okay, I'm just going to do this more now.
Yeah. And I guess that if you were, swimming in college, that means that you were training a lot, because I know that the swimmers
Yes.
are putting in a lot of hours every week. How many hours did you have a
Yeah.
week?
Over 20 hours a week. I mean, legally, the NCAA limit is 20 hours a week, right?
You have a
But when
limit
you,
for that? Like
yes, and
In Norway, we don't have that. When I was 17, I had 35 hours a week. People in the US probably would have put my dad in jail or something.
but there are also ways around it, like, for instance, having, like, optional dry lands or, going to the trainer or walking to and from practice over the Charles River, like, in undergrad. That was a big time commitment and physical activity. So, yeah, early morning wake ups and doing 2 workouts in one day and really just grinding it out, nose to the grindstone. That kind of energy was manifested from an extremely young age and then really only accelerated and picked up throughout undergrad and grad school and now medical school.
Yeah, so that means that you had maybe the best possible foundation in terms of at least
Yes.
endurance, but still, when starting to run, especially when you focus on the marathon distance, you have to have a lot of mileage. And
Mhm.
to a lot of us, when we start running later on, like I also have an athletic background, but running was still something that, and you've experienced yourself a stress fracture. It's easy to
Yeah.
get something like that. How did you deal with that, or how have you
Mm.
dealt with building up that mileage and handling, if you can call it, like the activity of running, not just training a lot, but just running itself?
So this is a great question, and I think my response is going to be extremely different from other individuals on your podcast who go a similar time than me, in that my weekly mileage never goes above 50 miles ever.
Wow, awesome.
But I the explanation though on the other side is going to sound kind of psychotic, and I realize this, but I'm a huge cross trainer to the point where I would say in my peak training for New York, I might have only been logging 50 miles a week, 45 to 50 miles a week, but I would probably log 10 hours on the Stairmaster every week. So, for
Wow, the
example,
stairmaster.
I would do a 9-mile run in the morning in Central Park to hit hills and immediately follow it up with a 40-minute Stairmaster session at level 14
Cool.
and then strength train. And that way, that was one day where I could also say, like someone else, that I ran under 10 that day, so kept my mileage somewhat lower. But it brutally, brutally taught my body how to tolerate a long, intense workout. And then maybe the next day, I would take the whole day off of running, but I would Stairmaster for 2 straight hours while I was studying, while I was answering emails, while I was prepping for residency interviews, whatever it might be. So that is an aspect of my training that I think other distance runners do not do. In fact, most distance runners don't like strength training or cross training, but I use this as my cheat code to increase the number of hours I'm working out without increasing the physical pounding on my tendons and joints. So yeah, I pretty much remained injury free. I've been injury free for about 7 years now.
That's super cool to hear, and I think that that is something that a lot of the listeners here can benefit from hearing, right? I think that
Definitely.
it's, yeah, so important to hear, because especially with social media today, you hear about people having 130 miles, 150 miles, 170
Yeah.
miles, and you just like, you might feel the pressure to doing that. And I mean, if you're able to do that and you don't get injured and your life is, if it works with your life, good. But I also think
Mhm.
it's so important to hear the stories that you're like, your experience and what you're sharing here. And I immediately get this picture in my head, when you watch these movies and you see people being super busy and they just fast forward
Mhm.
everything and you get all these shots just to make it look busy. That
Mhm.
is exactly what your life sounds like.
Yes, but that is my real life. Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And no, you're totally right. I think there's this pressure to have like flashy high weekly mileage. But I'm telling any runner who runs into injuries or is worried about injuries and wants to be elite, elite, like reach big running goals, but doesn't want to take that risk of injury potential is find your favorite form of cross training, arc trainer, elliptical, bike, or stairmaster, or some combination. And I mean, really go at it intensely. I'm not talking a casual cycle or an elliptical where you're hardly sweating. I'm talking look at your heart rate. You use that as a guide, be in zone 3 and attack that for an hour and a half to 2 hours. And I guarantee you'll gain more from that than the 8-mile easy run that your counterpart did. So it, like I said, it's kind of a hack, and I won't gatekeep this information because it's kept me injury free and it helped me go 235. So I think it's okay.
Awesome. I can't wait to hear more about the specifics of your training, and I want to ask you more about that. But, it's hard not to be intrigued when you are saying that. So it means that it's just like 2 or 3 years since you started running again after college. And like you said, you did run a little bit before that. But in terms of really starting to prioritize it, it sounds like 2 or 3
Yes.
years.
Hmm.
And you did 235 on Sunday. I know that you did, was
Hmm.
it 244 in
At
Boston?
Boston. Hmm.
Yeah. And what was your first marathon?
249, and that would have been May of 2024.
Wow. So what
Mhm.
marathon was that?
It was called Revel White Mountains. It was a random one in New Hampshire that was honestly just straight
Oh
downhill.
yeah,
I'm not
I
even
heard
sure
of
how
that
it was
one.
legal. Yeah,
No.
I think that they actually started taking those Revel races, or questioning them a bit because of how fast the
Yeah.
course was. So, yeah, but I will also preface by saying, like, my first half marathon in New York City was 123, and now I go 111. So it's not like I just came out of the womb running so fast. Like, it was definitely a work in progress.
Wow. So can you say something about how you decided to, because when you start running a little bit again after college, obviously there are a lot of distances you could have chosen, but why the marathon and the half marathon?
So I think when I exited collegiate swimming, I thought a half marathon would be just an appropriate challenge that felt sustainable training wise and accessible. Like, I knew some local at that time, like Cleveland, Ohio, half marathons that I wanted to compete at. But it wasn't quite as risky injury wise to sign up for the full. But I had done some 5Ks and 10Ks before, like, back in high school, and thought, "Okay, well, I wanna step it up from that." So the half felt like a natural distance. Then when I, got to medical school, I said, "I wanna keep being competitive in this 10K half range," because again, I liked having the idea of every 1 to 3 months, have something to shoot for, like a race. Um, but it wasn't until one of my medical school friends had approached me and said, "Would you like to run a marathon in May?" And that was my M1 year, so my first year of medical school. And my first response was honestly no, because I thought to myself, I heard that people get injured, they get rhabdomyolysis, they have muscle breakdown, they lose their strength training gains, that it's not good for the body. And all of that is honestly true. People do have all of those experiences, but I think that there's a healthy balance, such as doing 1 to 2 marathons a year, where you're not always training for something that's so intense on the body. Um, yeah, and so my 2 friends inspired me. We went and did it together. They got their Boston qualifiers as well, and then from there, thought to myself, "I really like this distance a lot." Yeah.
So what was your feeling after that marathon? Because although it's, like you said, it's a lot of net downhill there, but
Mhm.
249 still has to be, you are still running a very good marathon doing a
Yeah.
249. So what was your initial thoughts and feelings after that race?
Oh, I was elated about it. I wanted to qualify for Boston, that was my goal, and then I thought about it a little bit more, and I thought, "Well, and I qualified for Boston by 41 minutes," which is a significant amount
Yeah.
of time
Yeah.
to break the barrier that you were hoping for. So I think I might have looked at Olympic trial qualifying standard at that point just to see, like, what do some of the best women in America go in. And when I saw 237.00 for 2028, I thought to myself, only an insane person, only a crazy out of their mind person could go that time. So it wasn't even on my radar. And then the 2:44 at Boston kind of had me thinking, maybe because people even say Boston is a slow course, and yet I just went 2:44. So that's when the idea started coming into my brain about making that my next big goal.
You know, when you're talking about this, it strikes me that you seem, well, first of all, you seem like a very ambitious person in the first place with kind of everything that you do. I've talked
Mhm.
to you for 26 minutes, but that is still my impression. uh, so when you decided to, because you're not swimming anymore, right?
I swim once every other month for
Yeah.
like an hour. Yeah,
Yeah,
very relaxed. Yeah.
so very relaxed, not the 20-hour a week
No.
kind of swimming.
Yeah.
Was that hard for you? Because I assume that there might have been some dreams and goals and ambitions with swimming that you had since you were doing it for that long and at that level, or what was
Mhm.
that like?
So I actually had two big swim goals from end of high school through my college career, and that was to qualify for the 2020 Olympic trials at that time, actually, in swimming. And my second was to go to the NCAA championships because not many people in my area had attained that. In fact, when I got recruited to Harvard, it was like rare. Only the best people on the team would make NCAA championships. And when I went off to Harvard, I had a extremely successful freshman year. I had qualified for the 2020, then turned 21 US Olympic trials in 5 events. And I also qualified for NCAAs that year and was set to do well, to like place very well and represent Harvard. But then the pandemic hit. And so pools shut down. Swimming wasn't a very accessible sport during the pandemic. It wasn't safe and everyone's all breathing on each other at the wall. Like this was not running where you could just still, in fact, maybe even have more time for your career. So that was difficult. That was then my sophomore year of undergrad, and Harvard did not let anyone back on campus unless you were a freshman. So that whole season was canceled. Then my senior year, because I graduated Harvard in 3 years, my senior year, I came back on campus with just a hunger. Like every single practice, I was just so honored and happy to be there that I feel like that really fueled the fire for even bigger goals. So at that time, I thought to myself, I want to make finals at NCAAs. I want to break a few more of my school records. And I eventually want to be an All American in an NCAA. So that was like my next big goal. And I ended up accomplishing all of that. And senior year was even better than freshman year. And then when I went to Ohio State, I ended on the highest note for all of my
Wow,
times, all of my places. So in my head, my potential was realized in swimming, and no stones were left unturned. There
that's
were
great.
some coaches that had said to me, like, would you like to extend and do another master's or extend your time to see what you can do, on an Olympic level? But I will say, I was so excited and honored to get into NYU, which has the lowest acceptance rate of all medical schools in America. So I wasn't gonna delay that. I was kind of locked into this thing called medicine that I loved. And secondly, I'm a 5'4", 100 and not many pound girl who was realistically not going to make top 2 at Olympic trials in the events I qualified in. I did not see it as a realistic goal to make the Olympics, even though some coaches had thrown that around. I mean, I've competed against Katie Ledecky, and she's built different than me. I'll say that.
Yeah.
She's a friendly girl and she's very inspirational, but I didn't see myself ever achieving that level of success. So I feel like my potential was realized in swimming.
Well, that's great. I'm happy to hear that you felt that way. But then my question is, and because I was curious about the answer to this, to ask you, what happens when because you did say that you immediately started looking at the Olympic time, like qualifications of the queue, and you are running faster and faster. You run 2:44 in Boston, and so what happens to your ambitions there? You already said that you want to still pursue medicine, but are you now having some very ambitious goals with running? Because at least from the outside, I don't see the limitations that you're talking about with swimming here with running.
No, you're right. It does feel like my running career is just getting started. Like I might just be scratching the surface. And that's a very exciting prospect. But also, research shows in terms of muscle fibers and hormone levels that female distance runners might not achieve their potential until somewhere between 28 and 34 years old. And I'm
Exactly.
only 23.
Yeah.
So I don't yet need to put limits on myself and have defined goals other than I can say in 2026, I would like to sign a pro contract with a running company. That's like one actionable thing I'd like to do. And I'd really like to eventually finish the world marathon majors. So I have like one more actionable medium term goal and I have one long term goal. But everything else, honestly, it remains to be seen. Like I'm very excited. I can't say that I envision myself going to the 2028 trials and placing top three. But if that happened, I would get a nice Olympic rings tattoo on my body somewhere. But
Great.
again, I think that's kind of like an unrealistic expectation. Um, but I think that it's more than that. It's not even just, "Oh, did you make an Olympic team or not?" I think that there are just more stones left unturned in my running that I might not even know about right now. Like, I might not even be able to verbalize a goal that I'll want to get in a year from now because maybe I don't even know that race or, award or accolade exists. So it's hard to say. It's too early to tell.
No, but you're right. I mean, at 23, running 2:35 marathon, that is kind of unheard of. And then you have runners like Jess McLean, who is 32, right? And she's kind of
Yeah.
peaking with her marathon running, and it's really taking off now. And that is
Mhm.
like years into the future for you. So I'm very excited to see where you'll end up. And now after 30 minutes talking to you, I do understand because you posted on your story, was it Wonder Woman? Some, I don't know what was it, a magazine or something, or newspaper writing that?
Yes. Yes, this Northern Ohio newspaper, journalist reached out to me and titled that article Wonder Woman.
That's pretty cool. That's very cool. I feel like most athletes would dream of having that title or headline once in their career, and you have it already. That's awesome.
Thank you, thank you. I think the Northeast Ohio community is extremely proud, of what I'm doing over here in New York, and yeah, it's great to feel the love from them because I'll always know that that's the community that raised me, and I love Cleveland so much, so I have a lot of love back to them.
Great. Okay, so before we dive into your training, why don't you take us through race day on Sunday? Because I'm sure,
Okay.
hopefully, you remember quite a lot of it from that day still.
Yes, yes, definitely. It's interesting having competed in the pro field because the morning is different than just your average marathon. So wake up and I'm in the hotel eating breakfast, looking around. There's, Helen Obiri and Sharon Lokadai, and I'm just in awe of them and sort of also watching and observing what they're doing because I'm thinking this is the world's best. These are the world's best female runners. So I was definitely just wide eyed and taking it all in. Then we got bused to the Ocean Breezeway track where it was heated and there were chiropractors and massage people there and every snack you could imagine that you might need before your race. So they treated us very, very well, made sure we were comfortable. One thing I noted that I would just like to say is I'm someone where I am so new to marathoning that I don't know how I warm up for a marathon. So I was just kind of asking people what I should do because I
That
wasn't
is great.
sure.
That's
And I thought,
hilarious.
like, in the past, what I'd done is just literally sit as long as possible because I just wanted to rest my legs. But then I look at some of these runners from Kenya, from Ethiopia, some of Americans' best runners, and they're running lap after lap after lap on the breezeway. And I'm thinking, don't you girls know we are about to run 26.2, if not more, because you don't take the tangents. And then again, the other part of my brain is thinking, okay, I think they know what they're doing for their bodies, but I didn't let that intimidate me. I just thought, you know what?
That's good.
I'm going to do 400 meters jog and then I'm going to rest. And that's exactly what I did. And then I had like my second breakfast, made sure I had enough carbs in me, and then we were bussed from the track to the start line. Then at 8:25, the influencer start line went off, and so some social media people were there. And then at 8:35, finally, it was we were towing the line, and they did some announcements for the women that had either had like a record at some point, or some of the ones in the field who were up for potentially winning. And I just started in the back of the pack. I want to say the whole first mile, I was maybe third to last or fourth to last, hanging with two girls I actually know from the New York running community who are also outstanding runners. And us three were kind of chatting the first 8 miles or so, making sure we were keeping our heart rate very, very low. I didn't know what pace was appropriate for this race because I just heard it was so hilly, and I knew that I had taken Boston out around 6:20, but I knew I was more fit than that. Although I didn't necessarily know I was ballsy enough to take it out at 5:58. I thought in my head maybe I'd take it out around 6:05. But the girls next to me were really inspiring me, and we were holding steady around 5:58 every mile. We were just hitting that really consistently. And I felt so strong during the race. I think by mile 20, I knew in my mind I only had 10K left, and my watch had completely stopped working at mile 15. So I had no idea where I was at time-wise. But when I saw mile 20, even though my quads felt like bricks, I just thought, act like this is the last 10K that you'll ever run, like in your life, because that's the only way that you can maybe make trials at this point. And so I just raced it in, and even though it was miserable pain-wise, I think the race was executed really well. Because I tend to be, in a cowardly way, I tend to be more of a negative splitter, and I think I kind of even split this race, and I think that that was perfect for me because I pushed myself out of my comfort zone the first 13, but in a smart way where I wasn't exhausted by mile, say, 23.
Can you say something about that feeling when you cross the finish line and it's 2:35? How, yeah, what goes through your head?
Well, I have to clarify, for some reason, this timing system started, I believe, once I did the math and thought about it afterward, with the men's start, which was
Oh,
exactly 30 minutes after ours. So when I came in and I saw 2:05, I was just it was pure confusion. So you could imagine I crossed the line and I'm smiling because I finished, and I was so just proud that I finished, but I still didn't know my time at that point. I
because
had
your
no
watch
idea.
didn't work, so you had no idea.
Exactly, so I was still in the dark for a solid 15 seconds until one of my chief of staff friends who works for NYRR and a few others had mentioned that my unofficial time was in the 2:35s, and then that's when I felt the, "Oh my goodness, I cannot believe this." Like, I was literally beside myself. It's like, "Are you guys sure? Are we sure it was 2:35? Like, did I cut the course at some point?" I really couldn't believe it, because I didn't think New York was my I knew it was gonna go well. I knew I was gonna do well because I believed in myself. I just didn't think I would go at 2:35.
Yeah, because that was my next question. Since obviously the Olympic trials been kind of, or it was your goal, but was that your goal for this race already, or was that more like within the next couple of years?
Right, exactly. It was within the next couple years. In fact, I signed up for a March 29th marathon in Rockland, New York of 2026, to clarify, like March of 2026. And I said, this will be the first time I officially try to make trials. Because I thought no one makes trials in New York City. This is what I had been told, is everyone was saying how difficult of a course it was. So that just goes to show, like, I put down money for a marathon in March because I was betting almost against myself in a way. And not out of not believing in myself, I just think it was that incredible of a race.
Wow. So you did mention Boston compared to New York. I've not done New York, I've done Boston, but my impression just by studying the New York course and also watching it on Sunday, my thought was kind of like, oh, that seems like a really hard course.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts like when you've done both of them?
Okay, so in full transparency, I am someone who likes to convince myself in a very delusional way that, okay, it might be feel a certain way for that person, but not for me. So in my mind, the whole week before, when everyone was saying that New York is the hardest marathon major, I kept thinking, maybe for other people, but for me, it will be easier than Boston. And again, even though that by the facts, this is not true. We'll look at what won Boston versus what won New York. It is clear that New York is a harder course. And then the night before, I don't even know why I did this to myself. I looked up the elevation loss and gain in Boston versus the elevation loss and gain in New York.
Uh-oh.
And New York has much, much, much less elevation loss with an equal amount or more of elevation gain. So I was quite literally looking at the evidence that it would be a harder race for me. But still, something in me that the whole night before and the whole morning, I just felt like it was going to be a fantastic race. And I truly think it's just a product of me trusting in the own training plan I had made for myself these last 6 months. That's probably what it was. But I also just had like a feeling that it was going to go very well. But in terms of energy, I mean, oh, both races were just electric. So if we're taking elevation out of it, if we're just talking about how palpable the energy is, if you want to smile and feel like almost a tingling inside of you because of just how happy you are to be there during a marathon, you should sign up for Boston or New York. They're just so much fun.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, Boston was unreal. And then I'm not sure if you ever have time to watch any movies, but I did watch Brittany Runs a Marathon. I don't know if you've seen that one. It's
No, I've
about
never seen it.
it's about a girl who she goes to the doctor and she's told that she needs to lose weight, and then she signs up for the New York Marathon eventually. And I found myself crying when she finished that race because they were I think they actually filmed the New York Marathon, so they used real life. I'm
Oh,
not sure if
very
she ran
cool.
it, but I think that they did use real shots from the marathon. And especially now that I'm so into marathons, I was just crying when she crossed that finish line. And they were able to get that energy of the marathon through. And also watching it on Sunday, I was like, it looked amazing. But like if we go back to the course, because like you said, it's a hard course. I'm not really sure. Like I also feel like Boston was hard, but in a very different way. And I feel like if you solve it in the right way, Boston can be a pretty fast course. But that is kind
Yes.
of it's different, and I understand why people think it's hard. But if you're able to just execute it in a smart way for you, then it can be fast. But with New York, I feel like it's much more about the capacity, and you still have to be smart about it, but it's more rolling maybe the whole
Yes.
way. So what would you say that, like, if I was to run New York Marathon next year, what would your advice be to someone doing that for the first time?
Mhm. I think number one, you have to train hills extremely intentionally. I mean, actively curate courses that make you nervous for your next morning workout. Like you have to challenge yourself in training because that's the only way to mentally and physically handle it on race day. Because you think to yourself, I've done this before. So I would do Harlem Hill, which is the biggest, the notoriously largest hill in Central Park, 2 times sometimes on a long run where I was trying to go a fast pace, just to normalize. I can go fast up hills too. And my mind can enjoy it and almost eat up the challenge of it. So you have to uh, first mentally frame your training and get excited for the hills. So that's the first piece of advice. Just like that whole 6 months before, be really intentional about it. Then, actually, mid race, I would say you have to control yourself in Brooklyn because Brooklyn does a fantastic job in terms of live music and the energy, the posters, the people. I mean, it's the most populous borough, and it's tough to say between Brooklyn and Manhattan, but it was just so electric that it's easy to accidentally go too fast, mile 5, 6, 7, 8, for example. So for that, I would say you have to control your heart rate the first 10 miles. Then your Queensboro Bridge from 15 to 16 is going to feel miserable no matter how much training you've done, simply because you know you still have 10 miles. Once you get to the top of that massive silent hill, you have 10 more miles to run. and you're kind of beat and your heart rate's up and you're not feeling that motivated. So you have to be aware of that hill, but also remember that that's going to be the only time where it feels like you're in it alone because no audience member is allowed on the Queensboro Bridge. So it's truly just you hearing your own breath, thinking of your own quad
Hmm.
pain.
It looked
That's a
empty.
difficult time.
It looked
Yes,
lonely.
yes. It is both of those things. And if it's even a little bit of wind going, it feels like a wind tunnel. So you just have to know that 15 to 16 is going to be very rough, but stay mentally strong there. Then there's a slow, steady climb up First Avenue once you get into Manhattan. But the reason why you hardly feel that steady climb is because the fans, after the quietness of Queensboro, you're so happy to be back to being supported again. You almost can't hear your own brain telling you a negative thought. I couldn't tell you a single negative thought I thought on the Manhattan going up First Ave because you just feel the love. It feels like Manhattan's giving you the biggest hug to greet you. That's truly what it feels like. Then when you round the bend and you haven't gotten into Central Park yet, you have to be aware before you get into Central Park, it's almost like your ticket or your payment is also another giant hill. So in order to reap the benefits of how energetic and beautiful in the fall that Central Park is, and what's great about when you get to that part of the race is for every up, there's a down. So it's more fair. You just between 22 and 24, you have to positive self-talk your whole way through it. Even when your quads and hamstrings don't feel like yours anymore, they feel like they've been replaced by logs from the woods. That's what it's going to feel like. I would say that right there is just the definition of mental toughness and grit and just leaning into the hill. Like I didn't have good running form, I would say, up that hill, but you just have to almost change your natural form to just will your body up the hill. Then once you get into Central Park, just purely enjoy it. You're going to feel the pain, but it's another moment where just with the fall leaves and how every up there's a down and the cheering and they you're about to round the corner to the finish. So that part's not as bad and you just enjoy it from there.
Thanks. I feel like that sounds like, the perfect course preview for the New York Marathon in a minute or two. So that's amazing. What strikes me is that, with Boston, at least that when you get to Heartbreak Hill, it's like it's not all downhill from there, but it almost feels like that.
Kind
And
of, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
whilst with New York, it sounds like it's much more. You have that almost the whole way of hitting
Mhm.
these
Yes.
mental little challenges with those hills. So, yeah, I guess your Stairmaster training really came in handy.
Oh, absolutely. Like, for example, I think the week a few days after I did my longest long run, which was for me, 22 is what I did for my longest long run. I challenged myself to a 3-hour Stairmaster session
Three
where
hours.
I practiced fueling. I practiced what I wanted to eat on race morning. And that was the most mentally challenging thing I've ever done.
A
Even
marathon
having
is
ran
nothing after that.
right. No, exactly. Literally, because no one's cheering for you those 3 hours. It's you keep going uphill. There's no downhill on the Stairmaster, I'll tell you that. And it's longer. I train myself for longer than when I'd actually be racing. So it almost felt like the marathon was a reward, a treat, if
Wow.
you will.
Oh my God, that's insane. Wow.
Yeah, I
I
know
have a
I
lot of
have a
respect
screw
for
loose.
you.
Yeah, I have a screw loose in my brain for sure. Like other people are going to think this is not okay. And so I'm at least acknowledging that I know this is crazy. And I'm not out here recommending this to people, but I'm giving an example of a low impact injury prevention way that you can train your body and especially your mind
Yeah.
to adopting a New York course and thinking, I can do it.
Yeah. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. I just want to ask you first, how did it feel did you also run in the elite when you were running Boston, or was it
No.
no? So
Mm-mm.
when you were told that you're going to run in the elite field in New York, because I feel like even that must have been a very big moment.
Hmm. Yeah, I actually remember when I got the email asking.
Yeah, because how
And
does
I
that
was
work?
hesitant.
Do you just get an email after signing up that you are a part of the elite field, or how does that work?
So usually, if you're a pro athlete, your agent just gets you in. That's how honestly it worked for most of the girls that I ran with. But for me, I'm not gonna lie, my 2:44 is not fast enough for a pro field, and I'll just objectively say it just wasn't quick enough for to really get in. But NYRR does such a fantastic job really raising up their local runners and challenging them to reach new heights. So after this 10K I did over the summer where I won a 32:57 in the 10K, they wrote to me and said, "We think you're a different runner than you were in Boston. Would you like to run pro?" And I went back and forth for
Cool.
about an hour in my mind. I was honored to get the email, but I thought, if I'm slogging in last place of the pro field alone with the fastest guys passing me, it might almost be detrimental to my race. But then the other part of me thought, I've never been someone who just backs down because I have the slowest PR in the field. If anything, I think this will light a fire beneath my butt, this whole training block. And it did. Oh, and it did. Because I would look at sometimes and say, oh, this woman's coming. This woman said they're running New York. And I'd look at their PR and it was like upwards of 25 minutes faster than mine. And I'd think, all right, I'm going to do Stairmaster level
Yeah, I was
25. I'm
gonna
going to
say
max out the
that's what
Stairmaster
got you
today.
through the Stairmaster workouts.
Yeah, really was looking at these other women who are just so unbelievably fast. So yeah, that's kind of how it worked. And what's so interesting too is the more you're exposed, the faster I get, the more I realize that I'm in awe of the women who are so much faster than me. It's just like a perpetual cycle of feeling inspired and then more hungry and then working harder and then seeing success and then feeling inspired and more hungry and working harder. It just goes like that because the women I got to compete with on Sunday were more elite than any women I've competed with in my whole life. So it was an incredible experience.
You have so much energy, and I'm getting the same energy here talking to you, and I feel very inspired. Is this the energy you always have, or is it a little bit more because of Sunday? What do you think?
No, I think actually, if you ask any one of my medical school friends, they'll tell you this, or my college friends, or even my old swim friends, high school friends, that that they think that I wake up like, oh, okay, here we go, like time to start the day, like that I'm already smiling. And I'm like, I do wake up like that. No, I genuinely do. My feet are on when my alarm goes off, say at 4 a.m., my feet are immediately on the ground. I don't even look at my phone. I'm already eating my snack. I'm already getting excited for my workout. This is how I live my life. And a small part of it,
Sounds like a good life.
I mean, it really is. And a small part of it is that because I sleep so much, I feel like I have to take advantage of every hour that I'm awake. Because I sleep like sometimes 9.5, most nights 9 to 9.5.
Yeah. So when
So
do you
in
go
a
to
way,
bed?
it's
If you wake up at
in the
4,
month of October, I was going to bed at 6:30 or to
6:30.
6:45.
Wow.
Yeah. But now I'm trying to be a little bit more normal and sleep more like a, I don't know, 9 to 5:30 or a 9 to 6 type schedule.
Hmm.
Um, but then the other part of it, and this is like a more serious part, is you don't go through medical school and you don't rotate through every single specialty and not think about how thankful you are to have a functional body.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
there are people that I treat who would give their life to be able to run or walk in a marathon or have the lungs to do that or have the feet,
Hmm.
the toes, the arms, um, the freedom, whatever
Yeah.
it might be. And it just puts a whole new perspective on the autonomy and health that I have. And I'm just so thankful for that every day that I can't help but wake up feeling just grateful for everything that I have.
Yeah, I think that's a great reminder to all of us. I've been struggling with some lung stuff now because I think I caught COVID like almost 2 months ago, and I'm still struggling a bit, like trying to get back, and that makes like I'm confident that I'm gonna be good or it's gonna be okay soon, but it still is like it makes you think and it reminds you how lucky you are when things are functioning normally, and I don't think we're grateful enough, day to day that these things are working normally. And today
Exactly.
today I had some x-rays of my lungs. Everything was good, but then when I was in there, you see the other patients, they are in the beds, and then you're like, wow, these guys are not running a marathon tomorrow, or they
Right.
will probably never run a marathon. And that gives you some more perspective. So I'm grateful that you're bringing that up, really.
Yeah, it's like the notion of you never think about how happy you were to be healthy as when you're sick. It's like
Exactly.
that.
Yeah.
And if you just think about that every day, then it really provides that motivation and perspective you need to feel blessed for everything that you have.
Hmm. Yeah. Thank you. Felicia, you were talking about your training. You were saying that you were doing zone two. No, not zone two. You were going three, four, five. I'm curious to hear more about your training. First of all, you like you said, you've had years of 20-hour weeks of training, so you have a great foundation there. But in
Yeah.
terms of your running, is it something that you say that you are not having zone one and two? Like, do you never do that at all? Or is it just that the quality workouts are in the higher zones?
I so I have a unique approach to the running side of things in that I pretty much never do like track workouts or interval workouts. I just always would run 4 days a week. I do one long run, one hill run, one progression, kind of like cutting down pace run, and then one just steady state. And when I say I don't do zone 2 for my running, that is true. And what I mean by that is I'm always going the fastest pace I possibly can for that given day. Just
Okay.
always. I
Wow.
don't think during my marathon training I did a single run above 6:45 pace
Wow.
per mile.
Wow.
I did everything below that. And then on the more quality days, I try to hang around like 6 minute or 6:10 pace. So I guess that's what I mean about the never going zone two. As for then my cross training days, those would look like of the 3 days that I didn't run, I would do anywhere between 90 minutes to 3 hours of stairmastering, most of the time 2 hours, followed by a strength session. Overall, my strength training looked like usually 30-minute workouts with moderate reps, moderate weight, moderate to heavy weight. And I'll do 2 lower body lifts a week, 2 full body lifts a week, and then upper body a core thrown in there. Try to touch core every day because I think it's important for injury prevention. And then the last component, of course, is 2 to 3 of the run days that weren't above 12 miles. I would add on a Stairmaster afterward. And that was pretty much my training.
So Stairmaster is the only cross trainer that you're, or like cross training that you're doing. You're not doing anything else like bike or elliptical or.
I will only cycle if I was hurting from the Stairmaster, like if I had like an ankle, something like if something was painful in a bad way,
Mhm.
in an injury-like way, then I would cycle. But otherwise, no, yeah, the Stairmaster is my favorite form of cross training.
So the Stairmaster, what intensity do you do that at? Is that just like easy, or do you still go hard there?
I try to keep my heart rate above 120.
Yeah.
So it's hard for sure. I try to go hard. And then I would say 2 of the days of the week that I'm doing the Stairmaster, I incorporate intervals on the Stairmaster. So to give an example to people who are unfamiliar, the Stairmaster I at least use at my gym goes up to 25 levels. I would do maybe an hour Stairmaster at level 14. And then the following hour, I would throw in throughout the next hour 30 to 45 seconds of maxing out the Stairmaster, the fastest those stairs can possibly whip around. I would run on a Stairmaster at level 25 for 30 to 45 seconds, and then go straight back, not below to 14 or 15, but go back to level 14 or 15 to just not even give my body the opportunity to rest. And I mean, again, I think it worked because I was just so
Yeah.
trained and ready to push myself to an insane level. And mentally, the Stairmaster is way harder than running. I'm just gonna say it. It's way more difficult. There's no gratification in it at all. You're just on that machine over and over and over again with no sights to see, no incline to change. Um, yeah, so that really is.
And for those who don't know what the Stairmaster is, it is like simulating walking stairs, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's right.
And so you said that it's hard, and obviously, I think that to all of us, we can relate to the fact that walking stairs, if you were just walking upstairs for 3 hours, that would be hard, regardless of what your heart rate actually was at. But
Yes.
so when you say it's over 120, I think that to a lot of us, at least for me, if mine was somewhere between 120 and 145, I would still say that it, per definition, was low intensity, at least in terms of the heart rate. But is that also the case for you on that? Do you think that if you were to log just a heart rate, that it would be considered low intensity, although it feels hard because it is the Stairmaster and it is hard on your muscles
Yeah,
or your
there's
legs?
nothing low. I'm just saying I don't care what my heart rate says. There is
No,
nothing low intensity about a 2-hour Stairmaster at level 14 or
exactly.
15.
Exactly.
Like
Yeah.
anyone can, and anyone listening to this podcast can go to their local gym and try it next time you have an hour and a
Hmm.
half or 2 hours on your hands and click it up to 14 and just see what that experience is
Yeah.
like. You will never call that a zone 2 workout.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially not when you throw in the intervals. Oh, and then there's one other thing. I never hold on either. You don't
Okay.
let any of your weight be like supported. So never
Hmm.
hold on. That would, because you don't hold on to anything when you're running.
No.
So yes.
It's funny because I had a guy named Stephen McGauley on, and in the episode that came out yesterday, and he's now a 217 marathoner. So within 3 years,
Wow.
he's gone from 319 to 217, and he has what I called before talking to you. An untraditional way of training, because he didn't do repeats, he doesn't go to the track, he doesn't go do speed
Yeah,
work,
I
but
don't.
he does a lot of easy running. But he has two workouts a week. One is like a tempo where he just goes a little bit harder than marathon pace uh, for a distance, and that depends on, like, he's building up that distance. Maybe I don't remember how long that was, say up to 13, 14 miles. And then he has a long, steady run on Sundays. That was kind of the foundation, or that was his training. And I posted about this on Reddit today, and people were kind of just, throwing shit at it, because they're like, no, this is not untraditional. He's just talented, blah, 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 all of these things. But now talking to you, this is untraditional. Like, this
Yes.
is not
Oh,
something that
absolutely.
I've ever heard about. And it's really cool to hear.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. And I'm not gonna lie, some of my like more experienced runner friends will say, "Oh, if only you would really really get your butt into gear and actually run some real miles, you'd be even better." But all I can say is try 1 month with the regime I just explained, and you will realize this is much, much harder than just running 6 days a week and just getting your runs in, because there are so many other components to it that are extremely mentally and physically challenging that again make race day seem a lot more relaxed because of just how intense this training is.
Yeah, if there's one thing that I learned from having this podcast, is to not judge people's trainings, because I talk
Yeah.
to so many people. There are so many different ways of doing it, and so many fast marathoners. So you're not getting any judgmental thoughts or talks from me here, but I think it's
Mm.
really, really interesting to hear. And I'm curious, how did you, find this way of doing it? Where does it come from? Because I've never heard about it before. I don't know if
Mhm.
someone told you that this is what you should do, or if you just came up with it yourself.
It all just started because I knew in the back of my head, "Oh, Felicia, you got injured in high school and that ended your running career, and you were really sad about that." And injuries are preventable. Most injuries are preventable. So when I transitioned out of swimming into running, I thought, in no world is it appropriate for me to go from 1 day of running a week to 6, not even 5. So I just settled on 4. And then the other days, I didn't wanna just sit on my butt, and I also didn't necessarily just wanna swim on my own, because without my team, looking at a black line wasn't so fun anymore. So that's when I hopped on the Stairmaster for the first time. And the first time I ever did it, I only made it 10 minutes, because of how hard it was, because it's really
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
challenging of a workout. And then I just slowly built my way up and thought, this is really intense. This, like, I noticed myself, I'm more tired after my Stairmaster days than my run days. Maybe this will help me. And yeah, and then the rest is history. I just like what did 10 minutes, then 20, then 30, then my first hour, then I did my first 2 hour. And then I thought leading up to New York, I want to try my first 3 hour. And one time someone in my comments said that I should try my first 5 hour. And that's going to take, I need some recovery. I need some recovery from the marathon before I do that. But it is something in the back of my head.
Because that was my next question. Or a lot of athletes would say that to get faster, you have to train more, you have to build on what you're already doing. What are your thoughts going forward with your training? Will you make any changes? Will you train more? What are your plans?
So looking at how much time per day I'm currently spending in the gym, I really don't think it would be possible to do more at this point. So there are two things I want to change looking into 2026. Number one, I should do more speed work, and I know I should. It's just that when it's a product of having to study and run at the same time on the treadmill, that doesn't really work with track workouts. So once I find more time in my schedule, I'd like to get 1 or 2 speed workouts in per week. I do realize that that's a component of running that people stand by, that I'm sure it would help me have more pop for races like 5K, 10K, 10-mile half. So that's one thing I'll do is, like, instead of that 8-mile steady state run on a random Wednesday, I'll maybe throw some intervals in there. The second thing I want to do is like the little things. Like, for instance, I'm really bad about stretching and foam rolling, but I do believe that would help me recover more quickly. Um, but otherwise, I really want to just in 2026 keep up with my sleep, because I think that that is also a key to things, that the key to everything, whether it be your mental career focus and studies or your running or your strength training, is did I get an appropriate amount of sleep for my body this last week? And I would say most athletes who are busy with jobs, the answer is no. So just keeping my sleep in check for 2026. I think those three things: speed workouts, the little things like stretching, actually stretching, and then my sleep. Those will be good.
And you do mention the 2026. My guess is now we're in November, maybe a turkey trot on Thanksgiving. But other than that, I guess you're done racing for this year. What are your plans for 2026?
Yeah, so I have a local 15K December 6th that I'm looking
Okay,
forward
wow.
to with the
Hmm.
New York Roadrunners community that I think will be fun. And then I have a Manhattan 10K that's like a pretty iconic race. It's not the fastest course, but that's February 1st. And I think that'll be a good way to encourage me to do some speed work in January, because I'll know, okay, you have a 10K coming up, you gotta gotta do a few strides here and there. There's that. And then I just signed up for the United Airlines New York half in March 15th of 2026, which I didn't realize how competitive a race it is, but I looked at, and I mean, the females who went 71 got like 15th. So I think this is going to be a great race, because I'm happy to sign up for a race where my PR puts me at the 15th woman. I think that's going to really push me out of my comfort zone. And then, but I'd like to do Boston again. So that's in the works, with maybe if I can get in the pro field of Boston, and then maybe if I can get in the pro field of Chicago. Those would be like my two big goals. But yeah, a little build here: a 10K, a half, the full, and then like a fall full marathon.
Cool. I really hope to see you in Boston. That will be fun. Um, I just one last question for you, because you did mention that your people at school or whatever, they think that you're a bit crazy with all your
Yes.
running and the stairmaster. But
Yes.
what were the reactions from your friends, co-students, and parents and family? Like, what has that been like?
Well, I mean, I guess I'll start with my family by saying a few of my family members got to actually see it in person, even though they don't live here. And that was incredibly special. I mean, I think that just meant so much to them, and it meant so much to me that they were there. I can't even put it into words properly how much it meant that my family could see it in person, because they do miss a lot of my races with me being in New York and them all being in Ohio. So that was incredible, just meeting them with the biggest hugs and recapping every moment of the race. And they said when it would refresh on the live app, we would say to each other, "Ooh, do we think she can keep up this pace? Like, it's so fast." So they were so proud. And then my medical student friends had made these posters for me and said, "Come by our rooms when you're done with the race. We want to have you keep these posters forever." I got to my door, and outside of my apartment were like two bouquets of roses from two separate friends that
Wow.
I have who just saying congratulations. Almost every high up member of our Office of Student Affairs and Office of Medical Education and our deans were all emailing me saying that I was making NYU
That's
Grossman School of
great.
Medicine proud. And I mean, it's like little do these people know, like they're the reason why I'm able to do all of this stuff. Like I'm in awe and inspired by each of these people in
Hmm.
their own respect. So it's just like a mutual yeah, motivation with each other. And I just was greeted with so much support here living in my home, and doing a marathon in my home city was really like the experience of a lifetime.
Amazing. I'm so grateful to have you here. I'm so happy that you were able to come on and tell your story, because this is really inspiring, and I can't wait for the
Oh,
listeners to hear this. And I wish you all the luck in the world with everything that you have coming up. I can't wait to see where where you'll end up, and hopefully we'll meet at one of the majors, maybe already in Boston next year. So thank you
yes.
for guesting the Marathon Podcast.
No, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor.
Thank you. What an awesome conversation. I'm just left with so much energy right now. And I just want to get my bike out here and do some cross training, because this was just crazy. I mean, I'm sure if you listen through the whole episode, you're just as blown away as I am. And I must say that I feel like I'm very inspired. I'm not sure if my body would be able to handle all that high intensity, but at least doing that cross training, that would be great. Maybe I have to look into getting a Stairmaster here in this little gym office. We'll see. But anyways, just blown away by Felicia and what she's able to do. And I can't wait to see what she'll end up doing at some point, because I think she has a very bright future as a marathon runner. 23 years old, 235. Wow. Yeah. So thanks for coming on. I hope that you'll stay tuned tomorrow on Saturday with or for the episode with UL. I'm excited to talk to him. I'm saying UL because that is, as a Norwegian, that is how we pronounce that name. Curious to hear if that is actually how we pronounce it. But I think you should stay tuned, because he kind of had his international breakthrough, I think, with the New York City Marathon, and can't wait to hear about his journey and what he's done to get to where he is today. So thank you for listening to the Marathon Podcast. I hope you are enjoying this Friday if you're listening to it today, and enjoy the weekend. Talk to you later. You listen to the Marathon Podcast, brought to you by Wall Studio.